for the handful that started it all, the foundation was set forth with their very own children, Emic. Larry and Sally Mellon of blessed memory, one of the original founding families. This is their story.
My father, Lawrence Mellon, Larry, Pinchas Eliezer, was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His father was Russian, his mother was Romanian. He was very, very, very close to his mother because she had debilitating rheumatoid arthritis. Everybody loved him. That's what everybody said about him, that everybody loved him because he was just so warm and friendly.
My mother is from Akron, Ohio. They came from religious kosher homes, from parents that were also very generous, very involved in their temple.
She has an older sister who was born on the boat on the way from Poland. She had a younger brother who is my Uncle Bernie.
I guess by Los Angeles standards it was a small town, but Akron, Ohio was about 400,000 population. And we had a Jewish center. And my father Carl was very, very active in the show. He was one of the founding fathers. He was a very, very religious man. And as a matter of fact, of the three of us, Sally took after him more than any of the other.
My father started off in the cavalry in World War II, the mule packing corps, and he was stationed in the Italian Alps. They were under fire, counting hundreds and hundreds of mortar rounds, and his soldier, which he didn't know too well, had said something like, what are we doing fighting this war for the Jews, or something like that. He said, just looked at him and said, have you ever met a Jew? And the guy said, no. And my father said, yes, you have. And it was a very long night in that ditch.
9 months after I was born, I started getting sick. And my mother took me to several doctors, and nobody could diagnose what was wrong. And it turned out that I had poliomyelitis. Sally was my other mother. I had a wonderful family. They were absolutely a support group that nobody could ask more of. They made my life worthwhile.
My mother and father, I believe, were fixed up on a double date.
He calls home and announces to us that she's got engaged. My mother and my father and I looked at each other. From where did come Larry Mellon? From out of nowhere, you know. We knew she dated him a couple times.
And my mother and father moved to the Dominican Republic. My dad started a little factory making wooden bowls. I still have some of his salad bowls. But my father would not pay bribe money to Trujillo, the president of the country.
And meanwhile, Larry came to California, and they lived with me for a number of months. They lived in my house, and Larry finally found a job, and then they eventually got into an apartment, and it was near the Sherry Zedek Synagogue on Chandler Boulevard.
The life was very quiet. It was Sherry Zedek was a very small shul. It was a house with a garage in the back, and in the garage in the back was 2 rooms made out of 2 rooms.
The first 5 students, Sally's son Victor and my son Mitchell, were 2 of the first 5 students at Emic, and like Topsy from there it growed.
These days, would we send our children to an unaccredited school that's just starting with 5 people? No, yeah, they had to feel very strongly about Jewish education.
Talking about people that basically sacrificed resources, even their own family life to a certain extent, to create something not just for themselves, but create something for the community, create something for the future.
I was somewhere, and she said, where are you sending your children? I'm going to send them to public school. She said, no, don't, go to AMEC. Rabbi Shoham School.
My father had a vision to establish a Jewish day school in the San Fernando Valley, but he couldn't do it alone. He needed the help of people like Larry and Sally Mellon.
All the moms volunteered beyond your just normal volunteering. I remember being at the Teichman's house. I don't know what we were wrapping things for other people, maybe those less fortunate, or making baskets or shalach manos, or maybe for Pesach. I remember we were just all there, and we really were a big family.
Sally Mellon and Larry Mellon were the key people at Emek, also Shaare Zedek. They helped a lot with the community, a lot. And whichever way they could do something.
8.5 years later, I got a sister, Pamela.
I went to Emek and I loved it. I still am very close friends with the girls that I grew up with there, and I actually married someone who went to Emek as well. My mother was a teacher, and she didn't get paid, but she taught.
At that time, she was working to getting her public school teaching credentials. So this was an extremely good opportunity for her to get her credits that she needed to become a public school teacher, which she became later on.
And we had to stop by an apartment building, and she gets out, and I start to get really nervous. It felt very sketchy. And one of her students she felt was being abused in the home. So she went there to intervene. She was never afraid.
10, 15 years after they came out of school, thanking her for having a positive impact on their lives. I mean, 10, 15 years later, they didn't forget Mrs. Mellon.
Larry would always say to me, you know, I'm really nothing without Sally. I am who I am because of her. And Sally would say to me, it's because of Larry that I am who I am.
If she saw an elderly person standing on a corner and didn't know how to cross the street, if she was in a car, she would stop the car, get out, and help the person across the street. That was Sally.
Please, Sally, don't do that. No, she always giving more.
Before we'd go on whatever family outing, first we would stop off at a convalescent home. I would walk in the house and there'd be people I didn't know, and I didn't question it.
They lived a block around the corner from the shul. So in fact, we stayed there for one Shabbat.
My parents would throw a bunch of kids in the car and go to the mountains or go to the desert.
They stood by my father through difficult times, and we always felt like family, like we could depend on each other. We went on trips together and vacations.
They were the best in-laws I could have hoped for, and they were amazing grandparents. Truly my pleasure and my honor to be their daughter-in-law.
8 grandchildren. My brother has 3 children. I have 2, and my sister has 3. Each grandchild has taken some fabulous qualities from both my parents.
And they loved being with their grandparents. I guess the grandparents spoiled them, as grandparents do.
Larry and Sally were an amazing influence on my children. They spent many Shabbos at their home, spent time with Larry in shul, spent time with Sally cooking and preparing meals for Shabbat.
I'm Ian, and I'm my grandparents' youngest grandchild. I would always walk to shul with my Zaidi on Shabbat, and they taught me a lot about how to be a mature person and taught me what it is to be a Jew.
One could have thought that helping build the school and helping create the infrastructure of a Jewish community, that would suffice to accomplish in a lifetime. But they didn't stop there.
Rabbi Weiss was teaching at Emek at the time, and he said, wouldn't it be a nice thing for these children to have a book of Tehillim? My father collected the money, and every year from that date, both for the girls and the boys, they bought Tehillim books embossed with the name of each child, so they have their own personal Tehillim.
Mellon family, I would just like to thank you on behalf of all the years of first graders for the receiving of their Tehillim. We are humbled by your generosity. We could not do this without you, and we are who we are because of you.
and I cry because it's carrying on what my parents started.
The EMIC and being part of it at the beginning, and in honor of Gilbert Shoham, my sister Sally, my brother-in-law Larry, that I'm going to leave a stipend of $50,000 that when I go, one of the checks that Victor will make out will be to EMIC.
I'm the youngest, so to me they passed away too soon. I was very lucky to have them for as long as I did, but not a day goes by that I don't miss them.
She's very missed, very much so, and so is her husband. But they were part of the community. They really built Sherazadek and they really built EMIC.
Every day that we have the benefits of the beautiful school that we have, the community that we have, we should be thanking individuals such as Larry and Sally Mellon.
I appreciate the opportunity to have this acknowledgement for them. It's maybe wasn't important to them, but it's important to us. It's important to anybody who stands on the shoulders of giants to know who's holding them up.
EMIC Hebrew Academy, Teichman Family Campus, honor the living legacy of Larry and Sally Mellon.